I'd like to advise members and petitioners to talk directly into the microphone, record the minutes for legal reasons, and for this is the only way we can pick up the audio. Welcome to the August 28th, 2018 meeting of the Architectural Review Board. The Architectural Review Board is a 9-member board appointed by the City Council and serves on a voluntary basis without compensation. Our procedure for conducting business is the petitioner for each item will be asked to come forward, state your name for the record, and present your request. The board will ask any questions they may have. Then anyone wishing to speak to the proposal will be asked to come forward and voice their opinions. Each side will have 10 minutes to speak. Once your request is heard and the board's decision is rendered, you may leave the meeting. However, if you have questions for staff, please wait until the meeting is over and ask them, or you may contact the staff at the office the following day. Once public testimony and discussion for a particular item has concluded, the members will deliberate and render a decision. Members with a personal or financial interest in any request are required to recuse themselves from voting. All decisions by the Architectural Review Board are final. Any aggrieved parties may appeal a decision of the board to the City Council within 15 days. Petitioners may also appeal the board's decision to the Circuit Court within 30 days of the meeting. We have 5 members present. Oh, and our 6th one is coming, so good, she can take over. 5 votes are required to pass a motion. Because of the number of board members present, if you'd like to delay your request, please let us know at the time your request is announced. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce the members of the Architectural Review Board. We got Cedric Campbell, not here. Elizabeth, who's just here. Willie Welch, John Hayden, John Foshee, David Payne, and Katie Williams. And at this point, I will hand the gavel over.
Thank you.
And let her finish.
Good job.
Thank you for going on with that, Katie. And I apologize to everyone for lateness. You have a reasonable expectation that your chairman will remember the meeting and not be in the floor of a closet. The first petitioner today is Robert Bryant, Capitol Heights.
Yeah.
Mr. Bryant, welcome.
Hi, how are y'all? My request is fairly simple. All I'm asking for is approval of the color of the screen door that I had restored. This is the original screen door that was on the house, I'm assuming when it was built. I recovered it from up under the house and had it rescreened and restored, and I've already painted it, and I laid it up on the front of the house to kind of give you an idea as to what it would look like up there. It is one of the accent colors, I believe, that goes with the colors that the house is presently painted.
Excellent. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the audience? Here. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve as submitted.
Second.
All in favor? I'm sorry you had to come for this. It looks lovely.
Thank you, board members.
Our second petitioner is Jason Oswald, St. Charles Street, Capitol Heights.
Yes, ma'am. Greetings to the board. I am having some work done on the outbuilding on my property, and I'm wanting to replace the existing window with a window that's insulated so that the building can be adequately climate controlled.
So what it looks like right now is a sash rather than a window, just one sash, and it's 6 panes of glass?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you putting back something just like that?
Well, the person that that has come out and given me a quote is proposing a particular type window. It's the there it is. Yeah, the single hung insulated.
Okay.
Now, you know that you can achieve the same essential thing by putting a storm window on this window. Insulated windows work because they have a space that contains air, and you get a space with air if you put up a storm window.
Would that be put on the inside or outside?
Either way.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Window manufacturers spend a lot of time telling us that we need insulated glass, and not that there might be a cheaper way to do it, for obvious reasons. I mean, if you want to replace it with this window, we'll certainly entertain that.
Yeah, I mean, I want it to look good. I want it to be tasteful and in keeping with, you know, the overall look of the outbuilding.
I've got a question. The window that's there is 32 high and 36 wide. How are you proposing to put this window in? Because what's shown is taller, not wider.
Yeah, I was going to leave that up to the contractor.
Because if you do it, you know, squatty it down to where it's a double hung, it's going to look real weird to be, you know. Or if they might rotate it the other way. I don't know how this long window is going to fit in your horizontal space. That make sense?
Yes, yes. Well, I figured if that was the only way to achieve adequate insulation, then it would just, you know, I would work with whatever the changes needed to be.
Is the outbuilding ventilated or air conditioned?
It's not. It's not. That's something else that I need to have done to it, to have it climate controlled.
So you want to climate control your shed?
Yes, ma'am.
I think I would get a piece of 1/4-inch glass and put some sealant on one side of it and push it up against the sash that you've got there, and nail a little bit of shoe mold or quarter round around the inside of it, and probably have a pretty good insulated condition for a lot less money. It might sweat every now and then, but in your shed you may not care.
That's a good thought.
Well, how do you want to proceed at this point? Is there anyone in the audience that has any comments on the project?
Well, most of what you have suggested to him as alternatives would not require approval. So I would suggest taking action on what's before you. You've given him some food for thought, and then he could decide how to proceed.
Yeah, there's nothing about that replacement window that's going to look better than the window that you've got there now, even though, you know, it's in a semi-deteriorated state. That vinyl window is going to do nothing to, it's going to look worse than what you've got now. That's just my opinion.
Would you be open to replacing the window with the same size and same light configuration as currently there?
If it wasn't cost prohibitive.
See, so this is a wide, this is
I'm sorry, we were discussing the photographs and didn't hear your comment.
That's okay. I asked if he would be willing to replace it with a new vinyl window with the same light configuration and same size as the current window that's in the outbuilding.
Are there any further comments on this project? I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the petitioner's request as submitted.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed?
Motion does not carry.
I'm voting no because I don't think it's the right size for the shed. I'd love to see it the same size. I have no problem with the vinyl window. If it was just the same size, I would be glad to approve that motion.
I concur with that. I think it needs to be just like a fixed window, same size and configuration of what's there. Or, you know, you could also go ahead and do some of the items already discussed with the existing window and not come back, and that would be perfectly fine if you keep the existing window and try to supplement the existing window with a storm window.
Yeah, I like Mr. Payne's idea about the glass with the quarter round. I think it does sound like that would achieve the similar effect, even though it may not be functional to open. If it would help with the insulation and visibility, then I think that would be adequate.
Okay.
Would that be
And you don't
then
have to have permission for that.
would that be withdrawing the motion then? Withdrawing the,
Or you deny the petition as submitted, or you approve it subject to being same size window, or you have to take some sort of action on the item before you.
So we did that.
yeah, it's listed.
We did that.
It didn't pass.
Right. So it didn't pass. So-
He's got nothing to go with other than you all just went.
Okay. Well, I thought Mr. Foshi.
The only motion was 3-3.
So,
Three.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would propose a motion that we allow the petitioner to replace the window with the same size and light configuration as he currently has and a vinyl window. Or a storm window, so you wouldn't have to come back to us.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
That's better.
All right.
That's better. She said that's better.
Thank you, Chris.
Welcome to
Yes,
the
I think
Architecture
we did.
Review Board.
James and Kathy Fisher, Capitol Parkway, Capitol Heights.
Good evening. I'm James Fisher, and we just would like to put up a straightforward privacy fence along, to connect to the back corners of the house and go straight across to the property line on both sides.
Are there any comments from the board? Is there going to be any kind of gate?
Yeah, we'll put a gate on both sides, just to allow for, just some access, but it's mainly for my granddaughters, just have some security for my granddaughter and our dog,
I understand. Any comments from the board?
Did you show us what kind of fence you wanted to put up? Oh, okay, yeah, I was looking for it.
Any comments from the audience? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve as submitted.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Paula Weiss, Garden District, Bellinger Lane.
I'm here.
You're going to need to speak, you're going to need to move the microphone and speak into it. Thank you.
I'm here to request that I get permission to install a wood picket fence to replace the hog wire and post fence that is now falling down on my property. It's just really ugly too. And to place a shed roof over the front door so I don't drown trying to get in. And rework the brick patio because it's becoming very hazardous. That's the only existing piece of wooden fence that is left on that property.
Okay.
And the contractor said that that style and size would be more or less what we're going to do.
Are there any comments from the board? Is there anyone from the Garden District to speak to this, or a neighbor? Then I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve as submitted.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Karen Benton, Old Cloverdale, 654 Cloverdale Road. This is not Karen Benton.
No, this is her husband. We request to remove an extremely large maple tree in our front yard that is dropping huge limbs, more than a foot in diameter. It's been in decline for some years, and Russell Stringer came and examined it and said part of it is hollow, and he thinks it should come down. I see he's not here to corroborate that. And we would replace this with a magnolia, which do well on that soil that we have.
Okay. And it's not like, it's way out in your yard. It's towards the street in front.
Yes, it's,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
very close to the street. The power company has in the past drilled holes through it, essentially not the, through the leaf cover to make way for power lines. But to stop that, we've hired Arbor Pro again and again to trim it so it would meet the requirements of the power company and still maintain the aesthetic appeal of the tree. But now the tree is a disaster. I mean, you can see there's, it's the bottom picture. The tree has lost a great deal of its leaf cover.
Well, I hate for you to have to lose a tree of this size in your yard, but I can see it's practically dead.
Yes, it is.
I would think that if you could get the urban forester to say it's time to go, then it's time to go.
He has a very high threshold.
Well, when he came by, he told my wife that it was time for it to go, but has he not?
It's noted in here. It's
Okay.
noted on the page.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion from the audience?
Russell did say that he trusted Karen to replant the tree. I'm not sure what he thinks about you, Jeff.
She and Russell have planted so many trees all over town. I'm sure he would trust her.
All right. If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve as submitted.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Karen LaPlatney, Old Cloverdale on Thorn Place.
Hello.
Hello.
We are just requesting to put up a privacy fence between our property and the Goldman's property. Next door right now, it's just chicken wire and weeds on it.
The outline?
And we were just going to put up a 6-foot dog-eared pressure-treated wood fence. And then we were also requesting to rework a patio outside that is sort of a trip hazard because it's just pieces of stone and pieces of cement that's not really secured.
Right. Is there anyone from Old Cloverdale to speak to this project?
I'm sorry, were you talking to me?
I was talking to the audience.
Looking at her.
Darby Forrester with the Old Cloverdale Association. We discussed this in our monthly meeting. I just had one question because y'all had come to the ARB to add wings, and isn't that right where a wing?
Right. Right now, we're not going to add that wing.
Okay, you're not gonna do either wing?
Right, no, not right
Okay,
now.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Happy to
that's
put
a little
patio
confusing.
in
Yeah,
there.
on top of the, yeah.
We have no objection.
All right. Is there any further discussion from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the petitioner's request as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Opposed? Yes, ma'am. Well, I have managed to scroll away.
Run Christie.
Yes. Well, I have to be looking at it. I'm not either. I'm going up, aren't I? I'm going back to the ones we just did. I'm looking for the list, yeah. Is it on that? For that? I don't think so. Number 7, David Brandt. Lower Commerce Street.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm David Brandt with Fravor Services, here to represent Strayer University there on 79 Commerce Street. Does everyone have a copy of the drawings? So essentially what it is that we are proposing is a sign over their storefront along Commerce Street. You'll see the way it's built. It's a little more unique than your garden variety set of channel letters. We've got, instead of raceways behind the letters, which are like basically the 8-inch square tubes that run behind letters typically in a strip mall setting, you have a 2-inch deep back panel, and that back panel basically serves to provide sufficient color contrast for the letters. It actually houses the electrical wiring for the individual letters and logo, and it also minimizes the amount of penetrations into the building. It actually also would only would require one electrical penetration, which is of course beneficial to the building owner. The back panel is a painted silver. The lettering and the logo, they're your typical channel letters with the acrylic faces and the trim cap. The logo, the shield logo, is actually going to be white acrylic with a red sort of burgundy vinyl overlay. So it's translucent, so it will light up red and white, and then of course the letters will light up red in the evening. It's going to be centered over their bay. They have a three window configuration, and so the idea is to center the sign up above it, and then get the sign centered horizontally up and down between that soldier course up over the bottom, the street level windows, and then the underneath the I guess you can call it the balcony, the bottom surface of that balcony that's just above the sign.
What is the height of the Wet Willie sign?
I think I put it, let's see, smart code for a band sign, is it 3 feet? Is it still 3 feet? Is the height, oh, it's in this file, hang on.
Okay, I see what you're doing. You know, one
30
thing-
inches tall, 140 inches long, reverse lit channel sign. So, 1.5 feet, or 2.5 feet.
Also, with the Wet Willies, do we have it centered in their space or centered on the bay of the building?
I think we had this discussion previously. And we located it, or
I was
suggested
not,
it be
I was
located
not
in
here
this.
for that meeting, so,
It's centered in that bay, I think.
Right.
And I think we want to propose the same thing to you this time, that you center it in those, in that major vertical
You can
element.
see in the top photo, the Wet Willie's sign is there. It looks like it's centered in the space between the doors and the storefront.
Yeah, when that proposal was made the first time, I think it was off to the right, directly over the doors, and we suggested it be moved over unless
So it's centered on the whole storefront and not the door.
And it looks good, and I think I'd like to recommend that we do the same thing for this sign and center it over that vertical mass rather than centering it between the three windows that are there now.
So kind of bump it to the left a little bit.
Yep, bump it to the left and get it. I can only, the tree's in the way, but I can see those pair of windows above the storefront. And
So basically center it to the, if you're going 1, 2, 3, then center it over bays 1 and 2.
But it takes, based on the floor plan, if I'm reading this, which y'all didn't get because I didn't think y'all needed it, it takes up the bay on either side of the door, the storefront bay.
Well, this is a lot bigger sign than the Wet Willie's.
It is.
Square footage.
It's taking it more storefront too. So it's not just the door bay and the bay to the left, it is also that glass bay to the right. So at this point, over the door, it is centered in the space that they are occupying.
Right.
well, yeah, that's not what we're suggesting. That's not what I'm suggesting. But are we okay size-wise on this sign as far as its maximum?
I think it's too big.
I was going to say, I mean, what, 20 square feet is kind of the,
20 square feet is what the ARB guidelines call for.
And this is 48 square feet.
I guess it depends on how you look at it. I mean, the graphics are over 36.
Placed on that backer, the overall size of the sign in total is going to take up 48 square feet of real estate.
I mean, we are not on the interstate here. It's a street with a low speed limit. People should be able to read the sign if it were smaller.
Yes, ma'am. We're trying to make the letters big enough we can fit LEDs inside them as well. So, I mean, we can reduce the size a little bit.
How much?
Well, the university is 8 3/16. Looking at it and based on the stroke width of the letters, we could probably get it down to about probably 7, which would reduce the size of the sign.
How about the top part, Strayer?
There's room to reduce that. I mean, those are 20-inch tall letters. So I mean, there's definitely room to reduce that a bit. What is the allowable square footage?
20 is the guideline.
And you're more than twice the.
So
well, based on how you calculate square footage, what Christy's saying is that we look at the box here. If this was a raceway mounted sign, we'd be looking at the imaginary box that you draw around the letters. I mean, and certainly it's fair to say that it's a 48, 36 by, or I'm sorry, 3.5 by 13.5 square foot sign. But we can certainly reduce that a little bit. I mean, I just need to know what y'all would prefer to do. And
the other alternative would be an alternate light source, a smaller sign with an external light. And then the size of the letters doesn't matter. I mean, if there's a maximum sign face to put on that building. Because obviously they're going to have to run electrical to make this sign light up one way or the other.
I like the sign, I like the look. I just, again, I agree with the chair lady, a little large.
And for reference, the letters at the Mellow Mushroom are 36-inch letters, and you all thought that was too big once it went up.
Yeah, after the fact.
after the fact, after we saw what it looked like in the flesh. So this sign would be taller with the back on it.
Well, if I brought it down to 3 foot and I shrunk everything down proportionately, that would yield a significantly smaller size. You'd be surprised how much square footage you shave off a sign by just a sign like this by reducing the height 6 inches. It'll proportionally shrink down significantly.
If you took it down, David, 3 feet tall, how long would that take it down to about?
That's a good question. I'm going to ballpark it and say somewhere between 11 and a half, maybe 11 and a half and 12 feet. It could be more than that, honestly. I'd have to crunch some numbers, but as I say, it's pretty remarkable how much things shrink down proportionally by just getting the height of the sign down a couple of inches. In this case, 6 inches. I think it'll yield a significant reduction.
About a 14 or 15% reduction.
Well, you're talking about if it's 3 by 11, it's 33 square. What is that?
33.
33 square feet. So substantially less than what it is.
It could be 11. Might be. I might be sort of highballing it. It could be less than that.
I mean, if y'all want to consider a sign not to exceed a height of 3 feet and proportionally scaled to accommodate that height shrinkage, I mean, you can certainly approach it that way.
And resubmit?
And what?
And resubmit?
Well, I can work with Christy. I can work with you, and I can make sure you get a drawing and then distribute it to.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to dictate the maximum size, but you're okay with everything else, we can just verify that size and placement is what you all called for.
Yeah. You said Wet Willie's was 36?
No, I said Mellow Mushroom was 36.
Yeah.
Wet Willie's was.
How many square feet?
I have to look again.
20 something.
The width of sign was 12 feet, and the height, I saw it. The height was 30 inches, overall height. 30
12
inches tall.
by 30.
12 feet by 30 inches.
So that's, well, if he reduces it to 36, it'll be 6 inches taller. 30 by 12 is how many square feet, somebody? 2 times 12 is 24, 6 times 12 is another 6, so that's 30 square feet, isn't that right?
Yeah.
So what?
And y'all have the latitude to approve larger signs if you think the scale is appropriate to the building.
Well, I think something a bit smaller. I'm not saying 20 square feet. I understand that certainly need to put some signage out there. I do think something a bit smaller would be more appropriate.
If we
and
went
3 feet, what did you, 11?
If we went 3 foot, I just did the math. If we went 3 foot tall, you're looking at ballpark about 11 and a half foot wide on the sign, on the overall width of the panel.
So it'd be about the same width as the Wet Willie's sign.
And I'm rounding up because my numbers are a little, obscure.
Okay.
Thankfully, someone here can do math.
Anybody can do math.
That's a little cross multiplication. I had to pull out the 5th grade algebra. But yeah, it's about 11 and a half foot wide at 3 foot tall, and our drawings will be exact. I'll crunch those numbers exactly.
Are we looking for a motion?
Is there anyone in the audience to comment on this project?
Darby Forster, 842 Cloverdale Road. I really don't understand why it needs to light up. I mean, it's not a restaurant, it's not a bar that you're going to be looking for. So, I mean, I don't think Troy University has the light up signs. They may have illuminated signs, with the exterior light, but really, I mean, I just don't see where it needs to light up. I don't know if you could just do it with exterior lighting. I mean, is this the night university? Yes, ma'am. Oh, I've never heard of it.
I knocked that in
But, well, I mean, you know, people who are going there, it's not like you're driving down the street going, oh, let's go see what Strayers is about. I mean, you're going there because you're enrolled there, so does it really need to, you know, be lit up like you would see a restaurant or a bar sign? So
I think, Darby, I agree with you on one level, except that it's a new building, not a historic building, and we've allowed lighted signs on every other storefront. So it's not inconsistent with the look of the rest of the building. I am frustrated that we have guidelines for signs, and yet every sign that we receive does not follow the guidelines. If this wasn't a new building, I'd be saying no.
Okay.
Just for food for thought, the handicap, I like the large sign and the lights because I can't see well. So there's always somebody in my shape that can't see well. And so it would help
Well,
me.
it'll be the same size as Wet Willie's next door, so maybe you'll be able to see it.
It's still gonna be a little bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going back to school?
Well, I may go to Wet Willie's.
All right.
But I just think sometimes we have to be considerate of people like myself that can't see well. So they may need a sign.
I think 3 by 11, 11 and a half, that's going, with red, you can see that, Rev, if you were to walk down that way, I think.
Well, it's on a red.
My eyes are not as great as they used to be either, so.
And of course, bear in mind that the graphics within that panel will be even smaller. So
Yes.
hopefully that's of some consolation.
Is there any further discussion on this project?
So the panel itself will just be a gray metal.
Yes.
Yes, sir. It'd be painted silver.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one Mr. Payne does well on making a motion.
I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I have one.
All right.
That we say that the sign shall not exceed 34 square feet, and that it shall be located centered between the vertical mass of the first two storefront windows, between windows 1 and 2, going from east to west. And that's my motion.
All right.
Do you want to see it prior to them building it?
Do you want Christie to look at it before they order the sign?
We would need, I think, revised drawings for the file
Oh, I
to
do.
okay the
Yeah,
permit.
yeah.
So if you would
And revise the
say-
drawings accordingly. Yeah, 34 square feet would be a maximum. It could be a little smaller.
Well, I'd like to see that 3 foot as a maximum, too.
Okay, I'll
All
second that.
Okay,
motion.
and that a maximum height not to exceed 3 feet. If it's 2 feet 10, that's even better. It's probably better if it's longer and skinnier. Is that true?
Well, that depends on the lighting.
Whatever the logo needs, really. Yes, I'm as long as it fits and has space around the sign. It's not
Yeah.
too crowded and contrived. I think that'd be fine.
All right, I will second that motion. Beautiful motion.
All right. All in favor? Opposed? After a little grilling, you were successful.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And all of that will be spelled out in the approval letter. Okay?
Oh, Christie's gonna look at it. Yep. Kenny Roberts, request for approval of an in-ground pool and fencing at Gilmer Avenue.
Hi, good evening.
Hard for me to tell what the pool is. We have three blue blocks on our drawing, and one of them is obviously the house. Which one of these is the pool?
Yes, ma'am. That's the diagram of the house. Are you asking where the pool would go?
That's the site plan that shows the location of the fence.
Okay.
So the pool is between the two fences, and there are diagrams that show that further.
Yes, I think they found it out.
that top diagram of there isn't what the pool would look like. That I believe, if we put it together correctly, Christy and I, we submitted two options for a fence. Option one would be the iron fence that we submitted that would be comparable to the photos shown in the previous slides. That top photo would be option two, which my wife and I are considering both options pending what the board would be willing to approve. Option two would be a pool fence, and that's just what a run-of-the-mill pool fence looks like. So that's what that fence is for. That would be option two. And then that bottom photo right there is a 3D rendition, if you will, via a software program from the company that would be building the pool of what one portion of the pool would look like. I believe there was an additional photo submitted as well. Yes, there it is.
How visible is your side yard?
Well, with the addition of the proposed fence, well, right now, almost not really. And what we would propose to do would be to put in that iron fence where annotated on that sheet, as well as if you go to the photo of the front elevation of the house, our intention would be to put those bushes that flank the four pillars, bushes to that size or larger that would essentially screen out that area so it would be not visible from the street.
Your lot is up too. So
Yes, ma'am. It's significantly up. If you're walking or driving down the street, it's almost impossible to see back there.
Okay. Is there anyone from the neighborhood to speak to this project? Is there any discussion from the board?
Yeah, I hope you don't plant any palm trees.
No, sir.
Your fencing, explain to me again now, you are going to put the Ameristar fence on here, or this was just a sample of a fence that you might put on
The
there?
fence that has a box around it is the style of fence we were going to put up. The top photo is a flat top. The bottom picture is more of like the spiked variant, and that's the one we planned on putting up. Our neighbor directly to our right has that style of fence on his gate, and it would match that almost exactly. And that's why we went for the spiked tip, because it matched better with the fence that he has existing.
Okay. I'm looking at your site plan with all the blue buildings. Try not to angle that fence.
Yes, sir.
I'd have to vote against it if you angle that fence. But if you make it perpendicular and parallel to your buildings, I think I believe you'll be happier with it. And that if you don't, just put it literally right on the corner. If you pull it back a foot.
Yes, sir. That was simply limited to my lack of ability to draw lines in Adobe.
I know. I understand. And I think you'll just...
Yes, you'll make a turn if you have to.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. It'll just kind of look like it belongs there more because you're putting in a beautiful pool.
Thank you.
And you said you were putting then shrubs all along the side between you and your neighbor. And is that right?
Yes, sir.
But now the fence is... Where's the fence along the property line? Or there's already a fence there?
There is already a fence as you're looking at that photo on the right property line. Yes, sir.
And that's their fence, your fence. It's
our fence. Yes, sir.
It's a property line. It's a property line fence. Okay.
As it was explained to me by our neighbor and the previous owner of the house, that is our fence.
And so you're putting your shrubs then along your side of the property line,
correct.
Inside the pool area, basically.
Yes, sir.
Are you putting any gates on your fence?
Ma'am?
Are you putting any gates?
Gates.
To get in and out?
Yes, ma'am. Where the now diagonal line, but as mentioned by Mr. Payne, we would make that perpendicular. There would be a gate there, but there would not be a gate on the line that is closest to Gilmer. There's that little jet out right there on the building as you're looking at it on the right hand side. That's a greenhouse, and there's doors that you can get to from that side yard to the front, so we didn't think a gate would be needed there. Well, I mean, I say it's a greenhouse. My wife uses it to grow plants and stuff, so I call it a greenhouse. So.
Is there a way you're like gonna enclose the whole thing? Because it looks like between all the different blue buildings, someone could probably still get their own fence.
Well, what we would do, that building, the building that is on the, I guess
There's
in
like
between
152, 1604, and
that one right there where the cursor is, that's a guest house. And what we would do is, I should have annotated that on there as well, between the guest house and the property line, we were going to run a gate as well.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry for not putting that on there.
That's all right. Any further discussion from the board? Mr. Payne, would you mind sorting through this? Because we made several suggestions. We would want to, yeah, you.
Me?
You make good, you do, when we've confused things, you do a good job of sorting things out.
Okay, Madam Chairman. Then I would make a motion that we approve this request as submitted, that the fence that they've selected is satisfactory with the spear tops, that we make the fences perpendicular and parallel to the existing buildings, and not located hard on the corner of any of those buildings. And I think that's my proposal. I mean, my motion. I think, did I get everything?
Second that motion?
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, Steve Brickley. Proposal for a lift.
Good evening. Jim Hodgson and I have owned a condominium at 1827 Ridge Avenue for 14 years. It is on the second story of that building. Jim was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, in April, and he will soon be confined to a motorized wheelchair, and we need to get him into and out of our residence. Our first preference was to provide an interior elevator, and we worked with a mobility company to try that very assiduously, and it didn't work. The space is just not there. So the Veterans Administration has encouraged us to propose the installation of an exterior vertical platform lift. It would go on the south side of the building. It would rise up to the second story, 171 inches, I believe. And that's a street view, so it won't be seen from the street. The bottom picture is, however, the south side of the building. It would be installed beyond where that vehicle is sitting. A window would be taken out of the second story and replaced with a door. It would be a mullioned glass door looking similar to the window. There would be a canopy over the top. It's not going to be enclosed. It would be an exterior. You'll see a little, there's a cavity at the front of the picture, which is a rear door. And then just beyond that, you'll see a window and then a little jut out, which is a fireplace chimney. And this vertical lift would go into that space between those, the jutting out and the chimney. It would occupy that entire space. At the base of it would be a 4 or 5 inch poured concrete slab, which would have a ramp to the vehicle. This is a rendering of what it would look like, and that is not, it looks like a country club awning up the top. It would be a gray awning, but the purpose of the rendering was to show you a cover. That's again another rendering that David Brawley was kind enough to do for us to give you an idea of what it would look like. That is kind of meaningless. A contractor who's going to do some work with this, if we have permission, you wouldn't see any of that because those bushes would still be there. But I asked him to draw that to show the canopy at the top. And again, it's not green, it would be gray to match the roof, but it would stick out to cover the platform. And it would be behind where the car is parked.
Go back, if you would, to the Brawley sketch.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing.
Go back, if you would, to the Brawley sketch, the artist rendering.
No.
The rendering.
The hand-drawn sketch. There, back there.
Yeah.
It's about as neat as it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Christy, this is just an aside, but should we approve the awning today as well? Is that something that needs approval?
It's all part of the, changing out the window to accommodate, it's everything to accommodate the lift. So covering the first floor window, I think is what.
Okay, good.
The changing out the door, creating a doorway and the cover for it would all be part of the lift project.
Okay, good.
We felt it was important to have some kind of covering on it.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely agree. I just didn't want you to have to come back.
And what did you say? I would hope you could create a awning that could be, a shed roof, just a straight slope that was the same slope as your roof, or
We
close
can't
to
do
it.
that because
Sorry?
the roof coming down, matching the line of the roof doesn't work because it comes down too far at that angle, and a person couldn't
get out,
be in a chair there.
Yeah, so it needs to be a low slope.
Yeah.
That's what I'm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
That's comes down too
But
far.
it does need to be rectilinear instead of a bubble, like you have it drawn.
Yeah, I don't. We need a covering. I don't know.
Right,
what,
or just a plain straight awning.
It's agreeable to us if we can find one that fits that. Yeah.
Okay.
I know David Brawley is moving to New York, I think, so you may want to get him to sketch that awning on there before he goes, unless he's already gone. To sketch the awning on there to show your fabricator what it should look like.
Yeah. Actually, he did, but you can't see it. We can ask him to do it again. Yeah.
Well, I think that you fit this in as neatly as it could be fit in.
And it can be removed at some future point.
Yes.
That's a beautiful house, a beautiful
It is a beautiful building. Is there any discussion from the audience on this project?
Darby Forster representing the Old Cloverdale Association, and Steve presented the proposal to us at our monthly meeting, and we have no problems with it. They did everything they could to try to get an indoor lift, and it was just not possible. They even considered selling and moving out of the neighborhood, which we don't want them to do, and we think this is a great proposal, even though Steve said I couldn't ride in it.
No, we're very serious about this. We're giving up a great deal because of this diagnosis. We don't want to give up the place we're living that we have enjoyed, and it is our home, so we have to make this work somehow.
I think you have.
I think you have, yes. I think that I might, if I were you, want to put a concrete-filled pipe post at the corners here, rather like at the drive-through bank, so that somebody doesn't hit the lift.
Yes, it doesn't extend into the driveway.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
But still, just consider that. It's not part of the motion.
Yes, I agree.
Is there any further discussion from the board? I'll entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve this motion as submitted and presented, with the exception of changing the awning to a single slope, low sloped awning It still would provide headroom, but would be just a rectangular awning, more in keeping with the roof lines of the house, but not matching them.
Second.
All in favor? All right.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. And we have number 10, Leon Harris, Cloverdale Idlewild, 3123 Norman Bridge Road.
Good evening.
Welcome back, Mr. Harris.
Yes. Again, my name is Leon Harris. I'm here requesting the approval to put in a driveway, new driveway to the north side of 3123 Norman Bridge Road, and also to construct a RV storage to the rear of the property, and to put a brick wall to match the existing of 3131 Norman Bridge Road.
Could you refresh our memory on where we ended the last time we talked about this?
I have
It
to
ended
look.
with the trees.
It was the tree, and I think that it was replacement of was it 3 cedar trees? 3 cedar trees.
Right.
To be planted by March of 2019.
Could you speak into the mic, please?
I'm sorry. Taste of my own medicine. 3 cedar trees, 2.5-inch caliper to be planted by March 2019. So that was the approval after the fact for the removal of the cedar tree on the right-of-way.
And that was it?
That was it.
That was it.
That was the only reason we asked him to come back?
Oh no, he's back because he's got
something
more of
else.
his project. He wants to build his RV hut. He wants to put in the new driveway that was going in the location of the tree that was removed, and to build the front wall.
Okay.
So he came the first time because he had to. He was in violation. So he is back because he wants to do other things.
Got it.
You stayed in here, Christie, we should disregard the 6-foot wall proposal in line with the gate at this time?
He can't build the wall because the house is there.
Okay, so.
The gate has already been installed,
Wait now.
which y'all haven't seen.
Refer us to a photo here so that we'll know what you're talking about. I'm not clear.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again, Christie.
And I don't know. So if you go back to there. So where he's proposing that wall runs into the house, and the house is there. The removal of the house is not before you, so he cannot build that wall, which is why I said disregard the petition for the wall. It can't be built. The 6-foot wall, not the 3-foot wall at the front property line.
I'm sufficiently confused.
Yeah, that makes me unanimous.
Today we are looking at putting the driveway in, the pad for the RV, and a storage building of some kind?
The RV storage building.
The RV storage building, okay. And it's gonna be on the back of the property?
Yes.
And is it behind your house or behind the house next door?
It's directly in line with that gate there,
Okay,
going to the rear.
all right.
Which
And
is
there's
the
a
house
site
next
plan
door.
A couple of
The
pages
one-
later.
My house is next to 3123.
Right.
Oh, okay, so we have a driveway going down beside 3123 with an
Eventually.
RV, ma'am?
Eventually, 3123, we're going to ask permission to tear it down.
3123 is the house you're trying to tear down. You
Yes,
live
sir.
in 3131.
It's my residence.
Christie, you said we could So there are the 3 cedar trees on this. I'm looking at the site plan.
All right, so we've got no wall in this proposal, is that correct?
There's a wall at the front property line.
Okay.
Say again?
On the drawing that he did, that shows the cedar trees.
Yep.
You see Norman Bridge Road. You see
Yep.
12 feet 6 inches to a 3-foot wall. Now, the taller columns will require a variance from the Board of Adjustment. But behind that, there is a 6-foot wall to match existing wall in line with the gate. That is the wall that is not on the table because it can't be built until that house is not there, if that house goes away in the future.
Okay.
So there is a front property line wall proposed as part of this submission.
Is there anyone from the audience to speak to this project? Mr. Colvin?
I'm Charlie Colvin with the Cloverdale Idlewild Association, the CIA, and as far as the driveway is concerned and the storage unit for the RV, we have no objections to that. It sits on the back of the property, and Mr. Harris has done a good job of tying all the buildings on his property together. It's already on a double lot, and we're not quite referring to it as his estate or compound, but it's a significant piece of property, and he's done a good job with all of that. Can't speak to the imposing, the lot lines and Board of Adjustments or any of that, but as far as the driveway and the RV storage unit, we have no objections.
How do y'all feel about the front wall? Charlie? Do you have any issue with him extending the wall like the ones that is in front of his house across the front of this one?
I can't.
The wall that's in front of his house now, did the neighborhood have any issue with him extending that?
No.
Okay.
I can't honestly remember when it was built. Obviously, it was built after the pictures were taken, but I don't know when it was actually built.
Well, I started building that wall in 1996.
Yeah, it's been there for a good long time.
It was not in the photos from
I understand.
2004 that I had.
No, I understand. So it wasn't there when we got historic designation, apparently. But it looks good. It dresses up the front of the property. Norman Bridge is a difficult place anyway, and so we don't have any problems with that wall.
Okay, maybe I'm finally coming into this. Is it true then that the wall that they can't build is actually an extension of the 2 columns that identify the entrance at the gate?
Where the gate is, correct.
So he was going to run a fence straight across from there over to the side of his house that would be 6 feet high?
No.
No. Still no. Still wrong.
That the 6-foot-high wall would run perpendicular to the street, and he wants to build the wall in front of his house like the one on, like the one in front of his house. He wants to continue that one.
He does, but the second wall on that drawing, Paula, would you go back one more? I think that's the one that shows the gate. The 6-foot wall on that drawing lines up with that gate, running in line with it toward his house. So it would run through the middle of that house right now.
But it's perpendicular to Norman Bridge Road.
No, it's parallel to Norman Bridge Road.
It looks like it's built. Is that a drawing?
That's a different, no.
No.
That is not.
That's not it.
He's proposing a wall from that gate toward his house to the south.
Yep.
Right now that goes through the house, 3123. So he can't build it because there's a house in the way.
Okay.
So instead, we're talking about the 3-foot wall that's a continuation of the existing wall?
At the front property line. Yes.
But once he tears the house down, he can build the high wall.
If you give him permission to tear the house down, which is not before you this evening.
Today.
All right.
He has not submitted the documentation that we need for that to move forward.
Right, Mr. Harris, I don't know how other people feel about this wall, and I don't have any objection to a wall in front of the house that you're not living in, your non-residents, but the Norman Bridge Road, problematic as it is pretty much a road of a lot of small houses. And what you're doing is creating something that's really big on Norman Bridge Road, and it's not consistent with the character of Norman Bridge Road. I don't care if you put a wall in front of your non-residents, but I would prefer it didn't look exactly like your other wall. I mean, the wall that you've got in front of your residence is painted. If this one was just brick, that would be fine with me.
No, you're saying if the wall that I'm
sorry.
that I'm proposing to put in place, if it was what now?
I wouldn't mind if it looked like your wall in scale, but if it was brick rather than painted brick, that would be better. So if it looked like it belonged in front of that house.
For now.
For now.
Yes, I can. As a matter of fact, we could paint it the color, a brick color.
Okay.
We could do that.
Okay.
But eventually, we will stucco that wall to match the existing. That's what I'm requesting.
Okay.
But I can paint it so it blend in with what we have there in place now. But when we get the approval to remove that house, then we will stucco the wall to match the existing.
The compound is not pleasing to me.
Well, it's not
lovely.
actually.
It just
It's not
doesn't.
actually a compound per se. It is what I'm trying to put in place for security purposes. I have people to run across that lot. As a matter of fact, the police officer chased 2 individuals about a month ago to the back of my house. You know, and I'm just trying to give myself some safety and my wife some security there.
I understand that. More comments from the board?
I got a problem with this very large shed.
Well, can I have one more comment on the wall? So you got the tall wall here and the short wall going in front to line up with the short wall. There's sort of a space right there between you and your neighbor.
I was going to landscape that ground area there.
Yeah, to sort of enclose that corner.
Now the wall going down in line with the existing driveway at 3123, we were going to take that wall out completely.
So there's a wall between, 3123 and your neighbor?
Right,
You're taking that
3123
wall out? You're taking out the wall between 3123 and your
and
neighbor?
3131 Norman Bridge Road. Now, the wall that existing to the north side of 3123, the driveway is going to go in line with that going to the storage for the RV.
Okay, but there's so you have a wall and then you have the driveway. Are you turning the wall back towards the existing wall?
Okay, now.
So you sort of kind of complete the wall?
What Christy was saying is that once the house is removed, we will put another wall there to give us privacy to the rear, where everything won't be viewed from the street side.
Okay. Okay.
Like my existing wall there parked, where the RV is parked, there's a 6-foot height wall going down.
And just you're turning it. Yeah, I got it. But we're not talking about that one right now. So between you and the neighbor to the north?
There's no one. That's Dr. Charles Anderson house. That house is vacant.
But there's a house next to it.
It's a house next to it, yes.
Is it empty?
Yes, next to 3123 is empty. But the one on the corner of Ponce de Leon, that's a duplex.
Okay.
And I think one side is rented and one side is vacant.
So it's a duplex, so those neighbors really don't have any say per se about the garage for the RV?
No, they haven't said anything this far.
Further comments?
Now, for saying that across the street there on Norman Bridge Road, down the street on the right-hand side, there is a fence, wrought iron fence on the right-hand side, occupying, covering the grounds of 2 dwellings.
And that is not in a historic district.
It's not in,
It is
that's
not in a
historic?
historic district. Nope, and it looks like a compound.
Well, she have it like a compound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to the shed. Are there any, I've never seen, and I've lived in the CIA for almost 20 years now. I'm not familiar with anyone having a storage shed for an RV. Have we ever approved one?
I have not seen one in 12 years of doing this.
I don't have a problem with the driveway, Mr. Harris.
But-
I don't think I have a problem with the pad to sit the RV on, and I know you want to put your RV somewhere where it's, you know, out of the elements,
Exactly.
but you're talking about building a small house, basically. I mean, you're talking about 48 feet by 16 feet.
16.
That's 368, that's 768 square feet. And you're talking 16 feet tall, and you don't even have the,
It's going,
16 feet on the side.
and you're looking.
You don't have,
You're looking at a
how
gable.
high is the ridge gonna be?
You're looking at the ridge, the gable there going to be right anywhere between 24 and 4 feet, depending on the fall.
I mean, this is basically a two-story house.
Not really.
Yeah, really.
For midgets.
I mean, and it's going to be very obvious from the road, isn't it? I mean, you're going to put it, it's going to be right down the driveway you intend to put next to the 3123. It'll be straight down there, so you could just back it in and take it out.
You know, it's no different than in, right there, I think it's on Gilmer, but it's no different from a garage apartment sitting to the rear. You know, it's no different. The pitch and the size is still the same.
But the height's different.
The height are the same pretty much. So garage apartments sitting to the rear, and they facing the street directly in line with the driveway.
But the garage door is only 8 feet tall and not 16 feet tall. I mean, it reads differently as a building, even with the wall heights being taller.
Well, Ms. Anderson, what,
with the CIA, Christie, we'd have to go back and look and see when this happened, but on Ponce de Leon, first block off of Norman Bridge Road, there's the ARB, this is a few years back, approved a 2-story storage shed. So if you look down the driveway of the house there's a 2-story structure behind the house that is storage shed and garage underneath. And so there is precedent in the neighborhood for a building this tall. And I apologize for not knowing that, but if you drive by there, the building actually hasn't been finished completely, and it's changed ownership. So I don't think there's anything we can do about that. But it is a really big structure back there.
It was unfinished when I started doing this, so it's been there for
Good
a
long
while.
time.
Yeah. I'm just saying it reads differently as a building, that when you look at a 2-story outbuilding, you have 2 defined layers. You've got usually an automotive layer and then maybe a residential. You know, it's not, you're not going to look down and see a big opening.
Yeah,
It reads differently.
Well, my across the street neighbor has straight down his driveway, I see it when I walk out my front door. He's got his garage, and he has an apartment on the top that he rents. I mean, I'm not saying that 2-story buildings are not uncommon. I'm saying that RV storage units are, I'm not known one to be put in the area.
They're certainly not historic.
It's going to be enclosed. The opening there in the front, it's not going to remain. We're going to have doors built to enclose that.
You need to submit, if you told me it was going to be open, if you
For
were
now,
going,
for now.
doors would have to be submitted
Right.
for approval.
Right. For now, eventually, we are going to put doors there. But
what
those
is
doors
the,
cost.
What is the
Those doors truly cost.
What is the minimum comfortable clearance that you would have to have across the head of the door? I mean, it looks like your door width is just wide enough to get the vehicle in, but it looks like the opening is much taller than it might have to be. What is the height of the RV to the top of the...
From the bottom of the tire to the top of the RV air conditioning unit, it is right at 13.5.
And so if, now your drawing, your sketch indicates, so that could be 13.5, let's just say if it were 14 feet. I'm just trying to look at possibilities here, people. 14 feet.
That can be, but to give
you've
me
got
an-
it, let's see, your drawing showed it to be what?
Looks like more like
16?
Right.
16, 13, 5.
I can't find the drawing again. There it is. Well, it's really kind of hard to tell because the drawing is showing it to the eave.
to the break where the roof is.
So that could all be brought down. And perhaps make this look a little more comfortable. Maybe a little bit better drawing might.
Well, a better drawing would be good. There's no mention of any doors. I mean, right now, it looks bad, in my opinion.
I mean, the doors cost basically more than the building to construct. And
Well, we have to consider what's in front of us, Mr. Harris. I mean, you indicate you want to, and understand, look, we all know you can't spend money you don't have. That's pretty obvious. But
personally, I don't see any difference with that unit and the others I've seen around town that's constructed with the apartment on top and the garage underneath.
All right, then that's what, this needs to look more like that. You need to have I need to understand what kind of materials you're building this out of. It needs to have some decorative elements. It needs to have a window where you've got vent drawn. You know, it just needs to look more like it might be a garage apartment.
Or dwelling.
Right.
Well, who have you contracted or contacted anyone to build it, Mr.
I'm
Harris?
building it.
You're building it.
I'm going to build it.
Well, I think for it to pass the critical eye of this board, and I'm not being sarcastic, but a little bit, you're going to have to maybe create a better drawing that would illustrate a lower roof, and maybe something that gives it a little bit more decorative look. However, on the other hand, it's an outbuilding, and we have, I'm not sure what actual authority we have regarding outbuildings.
For outbuildings
Yes,
that
ma'am.
are larger than 10 by 10,
Yep.
the criteria has been that the accessory structure needs to be compatible with the main building.
Okay. Well,
So
there you
that
go.
means, you know,
That's-
overhanging eaves, design elements, not necessarily materials. I mean, we wouldn't make someone build a brick garage if the house was brick, but it needs to be something that plays nice with the main dwelling. It needs to blend in.
In the proposal, I put in there, I was going to stucco it with Dravit, with the cornerstones, the keys and everything over the doors. If you want me to add windows across there, we can add windows.
But I think they want to see those details drawn out on this building and not just pointed at on the photos that I mean, you need to put together the big picture image of making it look more like a traditional two-story outbuilding. Draw the coins in, if you intend to use the drive-it on the building, whatever other decorative elements you think it needs.
Well, was it a consensus that this building needs a garage door?
Well, I think you indicated you were going to get one at some point, right, Mr. Harris?
Exactly. I was going to get an electric garage door.
And of course, you've got to have some significant height above the door opening itself to carry the overhead door, which suddenly starts to complicate things a little bit. But it still could be done.
It can be done at the 16 feet. Now, we can decorate and dress the building up where it'll look like a house, if that's what you want.
It does need to look like a house, but it does need to look like it belongs in your neighborhood. And it's hard for me to tell that from the drawing that you've got.
And I think everybody pretty much felt the same way when we saw it the first time. It was like, whoa, that's a pretty big building right there.
Now, right at each corner, there would be cornerstones and over the door bands with keys.
Get someone to draw a elevation front and side of this for us to look at. That'll be essential for us to have an opinion more than this conversation.
I do think a cleaner set of drawings would ease my mind. And I understand, you know, I'm not looking at something with doors. I'm not looking at something, I mean, I'm looking at a black and white photo that you say is going to...
Can we do it this way? Before we construct the building, can we start with the driveway and the wall and the pad?
Well, we've kind of separated them out. I was actually going to make a motion, let you put the driveway in and put the wall in. And we can either table or move, you know, you come back with some drawings and renderings on the building.
We can do that.
So we can get you started on your project.
Exactly.
Okay. At the appropriate time, I'll make that motion.
What about the pad? Because I'm sure he wants to get the motorhome from in front of his house.
I really wouldn't have a problem with a pad.
Okay.
You know, it would probably be simpler or easier since you're putting the driveway in anyway to go ahead and form and
exactly
lay the pad.
Has this been through, is this impinging on any setbacks?
The building would be, yes.
Has that been approved through?
No, it comes to y'all first.
Oh.
In the entire proposal, the outbuilding is over the allowed coverage for the zoning, so he needs a coverage variance. It comes too close to the rear property line, so he needs a rear setback variance. And any of those elements on the front wall that are taller than 3 feet because it's solid requires a height variance. He's got to get through y'all first.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot of variances.
I do have kind of some concern about it being 16 feet tall by 48 feet long. A billboard is 14 feet high by 48 feet wide, so you got 2 billboards that you're going to drive between, correct? I mean, if you think about that, it's literally the size of a billboard on the ground. And I mean, not only just size, but structural. You know, it's 2 sailboats next to each other. When you construct this, I mean, it's not an 8-foot tall structure. I mean, it needs structural issues.
Okay. If I just get the pad and get a metal roof put over it, like I've seen in other...
You cannot put a metal roof over it.
Well, how am I care for my unit? Can I cover it?
With like a tarp?
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, you can do that.
Sure.
You cannot build a structure over it without this board's approval.
And I have a neighbor, same neighbor I was talking about. He has an RV about the size of yours. He obviously rents a space somewhere. He doesn't park it on Maston, not even where we live. I think he parks it at, there's some rental units that have.
You know, why should I rent something that I have ground to put it on?
You just need to come up with a design that you can build in this location.
All right.
I mean, I don't have a problem with you putting a pad there and parking there. My concern is that all the setbacks, they're going to say you can't build something there.
Yes,
I just hate for you to put a pad in and then have to put another pad in.
Let me get it out of the front of my house.
I mean,
You know, if we happen to approve a structure at a later time, then if it gets shot down because of setbacks and whatnot, I mean, Mr. Harris, this sounds like the first battle of a couple that he's going to have to do.
But, I mean, I don't have a problem with the pad and you parking it behind your house at all.
No.
I just want you to be considerate of the fact that you are in the corner of your property, and if you don't adhere to some of those setbacks for something this big, it might not get approved and you might have to build another pad.
So maybe just the driveway and the wall.
Well, no, I mean, he can build a pad wherever he wants. It just, you might have to build another one to build the house, or building. I'm not saying, but I'm okay with building a pad to put it in. I mean, I prefer it to be behind your house and in front of your house. I'm sure you do too. And I don't mind it in the corner. if you put your pad to a point where you could maybe not, where you be within the setbacks, would that be? I'm just trying to help you out in the future, really.
Well,
And without a full set of a site plan and things like that, it's kind of hard to tell what your setbacks are. I'm guessing that it's probably 10 feet on the side and
he needs 5
30 in
feet
the
off the
back.
side and 5 feet off the rear. He's 3 feet off the rear, and I think that gets him into the territory where he's going to have to fire rate that wall as well.
See, I mean, if you're only 2
Now,
feet.
at the back of me now, there are units in place that's 3 feet from the property line.
That's not what they look at. And we had that discussion, Mr. Harris.
I mean, if we're talking you're 2 feet away from your setback, I would try to build your pad within your setback.
We'll do it 5 feet off the property line. We'll do it exactly 5 feet off the property line. Pardon me?
That's going to move your driveway over.
Well, I mean.
No, it was 5 feet off the back. It was only 3 feet off the back. He was 5 feet off the side. So
Okay.
he's okay that direction.
Okay.
It just needs to come forward 2 feet.
I would definitely do that so you don't have to go through that hurdle. I mean, it's 2 feet on a large property.
We'll bring it 5 feet off the back wall.
All right. Can someone make a motion?
Yes.
Based on this?
I think it's going to be fairly straightforward. I
All
move
right.
that we approve Mr. Harris' permission to do the driveway and the parking pad
Within the setback.
within the setbacks. And move that we approve permission to construct the 3-foot wall. I move that we table consideration on the structure until Mr. Harris provides additional renderings and drawings, and we'll take that up whenever he's able to get them to Ms. Anderson, and we'll come back, but this will give him something to start.
I'll have it to you for the next meeting.
All right.
My deadline is Friday for the next meeting.
Deadline is this Friday?
Yes, it is.
I'll try to make that.
All right. May I have a second to that motion?
Second.
All right. All in favor? Opposed? Go
Thank you.
Go and have a driveway. All right. We need to consider the minutes of the last meeting, which were sent out to us. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, I stand approved as read.
I've got one more thing.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
I told the owner he didn't have to come see y'all.
You told who? No, Your Honor.
The owner of, I think it's 3184 Lexington Road, has a metal garage, and he asked about bricking it, and it's a garage that the roof just rolls over the side, and I said, well, how are you going to how are you going to alter the roof so you don't have water running behind your brick? And he said, well, I've got this thing, and he brought me a sample, and it's essentially a faux styrofoam brick cover that he's wanting to know if you would entertain the application of that on a metal building, or is that just putting lipstick on a pig? So.
The whole height?
Hmm?
The whole side of the building?
Mm-hmm. I think he wants to do the whole thing.
Well, it is lipstick on a pig, but
He's already
Is that
got
a
the,
bad
he's
thing?
already got the pig, right? But if you thought that was a material you might approve in that situation, I would tell him to make application. If not, then I will tell him not to waste his time.
I mean, I thought it was, when he said faux brick, I thought it was actual brick, just, you know, it's
Slices.
cut.
Yes.
No. But no, that's,
Styrofoam.
that ain't brick. That is really faux.
So I'd love to know how the joints are treated.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Look
You know.
I mean, let's say you get an 8-foot panel.
Is that something you put, like you peel off the back and press and just, like you did? I agree
I
with
said
David.
I would ask because we had not seen
I
it.
understand. I'm kind of leaning towards.
It is a
David.
very interesting material, but I don't think it's approvable at this time without more information for sure, but I can't approve it now.
you know, you could put plywood up and do like they do at the shopping centers. They're not really brick either. They're just that thin set.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's essentially tile, but it looks like brick.
I think a weed whacker go right through that
Yes,
too.
well, that. And Well, Elizabeth's right. Something that actually, I mean, if you went up and put your hand on it, you actually think it might be brick.
Yes.
You put your hand on that, I'm thinking of a styrofoam coffee cup.
It's only when you arrive and see the brick mason putting the bricks that are this thick up there that you realize that it's not real.
This was,
Okay, I'll tell him to go back to the drawing board.
Why does he want brick?
The house is brick, and I think he's just trying to make the metal building
Look nicer?
fit in a little better. He had kind of a master plan of what he wanted to do with the property, and he was trying to do too much on too small of a lot, so he scaled it back to, what if I reface the existing outbuildings? That's where this was coming from. So.
Kristen, could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
On that house, now because he's gonna be a problem on that house, he talks about how much money it's gonna cost to bring that house back up because it burned, but that's not a consideration of ours, is it?
Not really. The state statute allows consideration, it's not in our code, but allows consideration of whether or not it's an economic hardship, that the renovations would exceed the ultimate value of the property. Based on my conversations with Mr. Harris to date, that does not seem to be the case. But I told him the burden was on him to demonstrate to the board that it would cost far more than it's worth to salvage. That said, when I went out and took pictures, it looked like the front rooms were storing firewood. So
And
it may have another fire.
And what about demolition by neglect?
Are you saying that he may not be able to tear the house down?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what she's saying.
He has to
Then if
petition.
he goes and puts this ridiculous driveway going down and puts a pad back there, or if we ever were to give him approval to build a building, and then he couldn't tear the house down.
The conversations we have had, because what he has told me his long-term plan is that if he tears this house down, he wants to add on to his house, again, parallel to the street, which I told him he's already occupying 2 lots, that he's already on more land than any other house in that neighborhood, that I didn't know that the board would be agreeable to continuing that linear frontage with another addition. But he's got to get numbers. I mean, he's got to get written estimates. You know, there were some suggestions at a workshop I went to at a conference this summer about, you know, we use Google Street View all the time to figure out when people did stuff, which is great. But like them or not, you know, there are a lot of online estimators of what the market value of a property is, and we can use that in addition to the tax assessor's records to say, you know, if he comes in and says it's going to cost me $80,000 and he paid $20,000 for it, I don't know what he paid for it, but the market value is $150,000, then it's hard to say that it's not worth fixing. So it just doesn't necessarily conform with.
So who makes the final call on that?
On what?
On whether he